What's up, guys? And welcome back to another video. SharkBite fittings have made life a whole lot easier for homeowners who want to tackle their own plumbing without dragging out a torch or messing with solder. They are quick, reliable, and beginner-friendly. But after 3 decades of working on pipes, I can tell you these fittings only work when you avoid a handful of critical mistakes. Today we are walking through 6 SharkBite mistakes that cause massive leaks. And number 5 is one that catches even experienced DIers completely off guard. Stick around for a bonus tip at the end that could save you from a disaster behind your walls. The first mistake on this list, and honestly the one I see cause the most leaks, is not deburring the pipe before you push the fitting on. Now here is what happens when you skip this step. Every time you cut a pipe, whether it is copper or PEX or CPVC, the cut leaves behind tiny rough edges and burrs right along the rim. They might look small, almost invisible, but they are sharp enough to do real damage. When you push that pipe into a SharkBite fitting, it slides past a rubber O-ring on the inside. That O-ring is what creates your watertight seal. It is the only thing standing between you and a leak. So if that pipe end has even a small burr or a jagged little edge sticking up, it can slice right into that O-ring as you push the pipe in. Sometimes the leak shows up immediately. Other times, it is a slow drip that does not reveal itself for days or even weeks. And by then you have got water damage you did not even know was happening. The fix is simple and takes about 10 seconds. After every single cut, grab a deburring tool and clean up that pipe end. SharkBite actually makes a combination, deburr and gauge tool, that handles this perfectly. You just twist it around the inside and outside of the pipe until that edge is smooth and beveled. If you do not have one of those, our basic half-round file works fine. Even a piece of sandpaper wrapped around your finger can do the trick in a pinch. The point is you need that pipe end to be completely smooth before it goes anywhere near the fitting. No shortcuts here. I do not care if you are in a hurry or if the water is dripping and you just want to get the job done. 10 seconds of deburring can save you hours of cleanup and hundreds of dollars in water damage. Make it a habit on every single cut, every single time. The second mistake that leads to leaks more often than people realize is not inserting the pipe to the full depth inside the fitting. This one is sneaky because the fitting feels like it is connected. You push the pipe in, it grabs, and you think you are good to go. But here's the thing. SharkBite fittings have a specific insertion depth that varies depending on the size of the fitting. For a 1/2-inch fitting, the pipe needs to go in about 15/16 of an inch. For 3/4 inch, it is a little over 1 inch. If you are even a fraction short, the grab ring and the O-ring may not fully engage around the pipe, and that means a weak seal. It might hold for a little while under low pressure, but the moment you turn the water fully on or get a pressure spike, that connection can start to drip or even blow right off the pipe. I have seen it happen. A homeowner pushes the fitting on, thinks everything is fine, turns the water back on, and suddenly there is water spraying everywhere. The fix for this is dead simple but non-negotiable. Before you push any pipe into a SharkBite fitting, you need to mark the insertion depth on the pipe. SharkBite makes a depth gauge tool, which is actually the same tool as the deburring tool I just mentioned. So you are getting 2 jobs done with one inexpensive little device. You slide the gauge over the pipe end and make a mark with a permanent marker or a piece of tape right at the line. Then when you push the pipe into the fitting, you watch for that mark. If it disappears completely into the fitting, you know you are seated all the way. If you can still see it, the pipe is not in far enough, and you need to push harder or figure out what is blocking it. SharkBite also has an insertion depth chart on their website that lists every fitting size and the exact depth required. I will say it again. Never guess on insertion depth. Always mark it. That 10 seconds of measuring is the difference between a rock-solid connection and a flooded crawl space. The third mistake on our list is making a non-square cut on the pipe. And this one is more common than you would think. When you cut a pipe at an angle instead of straight across, it creates an uneven surface going into the fitting. Picture it this way. The O-ring inside the fitting is designed to seal evenly around the entire circumference of the pipe. If your cut is slanted, one side of the pipe pushes further into the fitting than the other. That leaves a small gap on the short side where the O-ring cannot make full contact. That gap is all it takes for water to find its way out. It might not be a gusher. It might just be a slow weep that drips down the pipe and puddles somewhere you cannot see. But over time, that small drip turns into stained drywall, mold, or worse. The biggest culprit here is using the wrong cutting tool. A hacksaw is terrible for this job. It vibrates, it wanders, and getting a perfectly square cut with a hacksaw on a round pipe is nearly impossible. What you want is a proper tubing cutter. For copper, a rotary pipe cutter gives you a clean, square cut every single time. You just clamp it on, tighten it a little, spin it around the pipe, tighten again, and repeat until it cuts through. For PEX tubing, use a ratcheting PEX cutter. It is like a pair of heavy-duty scissors designed specifically for plastic tubing, and it gives you a straight cut in one squeeze. The key is a clean, square edge so that when the pipe slides into the fitting, the O-ring contacts the pipe evenly all the way around. If you make a cut and it looks even slightly crooked, do not try to force it. Cut off another 1/4 inch and try again. Pipe is cheaper than water damage. Now, if you are finding this video helpful so far, I'd really appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps this video reach more homeowners like yourself who would also find this information helpful. All right, let's continue. The fourth mistake, and this is one that surprises a lot of people, is using the wrong SharkBite fitting for your pipe material. See, not all SharkBite fittings are the same, and this is where the color of the collar on the fitting really matters. SharkBite uses a color-coded system to tell you exactly which pipes each fitting is designed to work with. A tan collar fitting is designed for PEX, copper, CPVC, PERT, and HDPE pipe. A gray collar fitting is specifically made for polybutylene pipe, which you will find in a lot of homes built from the late 70s through the mid-90s. And a white collar fitting is designed for PVC pipe. Now, here's where the trouble starts. A homeowner heads to the hardware store, grabs a SharkBite fitting off the shelf without checking the collar color, brings it home, and pushes it onto whatever pipe they are working with. If the collar does not match the pipe material, the internal dimensions and the O-ring seal are not going to line up correctly. The fitting might feel like it grabbed on, but the seal is compromised from the start. I have seen people try to use a standard tan collar fitting on polybutylene pipe, and it leaks immediately because the outside diameter of polybutylene is slightly different. Same thing happens if you try to use a PVC fitting on copper, or vice versa. The materials have different outside diameters and wall thicknesses, so the grab ring and O-ring simply cannot do their job. Before you buy any SharkBite fitting, identify your pipe material first. If you are not sure what you have, take a small piece to the hardware store and ask someone to help you match it. Check that collar color before you leave the store. It takes 2 seconds and it prevents a leak that would have been completely avoidable. The fifth mistake is one that even experienced DIYers get caught by, and that is soldering too close to a SharkBite fitting that is already installed on the pipe. This happens a lot when you are working on copper lines and you need to make multiple connections in the same area. Maybe you installed your SharkBite fitting first, and now you need to solder a joint a few inches down the line. You fire up the torch, heat the copper, and everything looks fine. But here is what is happening that you cannot see. Copper is an excellent conductor of heat. That flame does not just stay where you point it. The heat travels right down the pipe and straight into the body of that SharkBite fitting. Inside every SharkBite fitting is an EPDM rubber O-ring, and that O-ring is what creates your watertight seal. EPDM rubber is tough stuff, and it is designed to handle water temperatures up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit under normal conditions. But the concentrated heat from a soldering torch can push temperatures well past that in seconds. Once that O-ring gets overheated, it warps, cracks, or loses its elasticity. And the worst part is you will not know it happened right away. The fitting might look perfectly fine on the outside. You might turn the water on and not see a single drip. But over time, as that damaged O-ring gets cycled through hot and cold water and pressure changes, it starts to fail. Weeks or months later, you have got a leak behind a wall or under a cabinet that seems to have come out of nowhere. The rule here is simple and it comes straight from the manufacturer. Always do your soldering first before you install any SharkBite fittings on that line. If you have already installed a SharkBite fitting and you realize you need to solder nearby, take the SharkBite off first. Use the disconnect clip, pull the fitting off, do your soldering work, let the pipe cool completely, and then reinstall the SharkBite fitting. I know it feels like extra work, but trust me, it is a lot less work than tearing out drywall to find a mystery leak 3 months down the road. If you absolutely have to solder near an existing SharkBite fitting and cannot remove it for some reason, wrap a wet rag around the pipe between the torch and the fitting to help absorb some of the heat. But honestly, the safest approach is to just remove the fitting, solder, let it cool, and put it back on. No exceptions. The sixth and final mistake on our list is reusing a SharkBite fitting too many times without checking its condition. Now, one of the nice things about SharkBite fittings is that they are designed to be removable. You can take them off and put them back on, which is great for testing or if you need to adjust your layout. But here is where people get into trouble. Every time you push a pipe into the fitting and pull it back out, the O-ring takes a little bit of wear. The stainless steel grab ring teeth also interact with the pipe surface each time, and on softer pipe materials like PEX, this can leave tiny scratches on the outside of the pipe. Those scratches might seem harmless, but if they're deep enough, they create small channels that water can follow right past the O-ring seal. SharkBite fittings come from the factory with a pre-lubricated O-ring that keeps everything sliding smoothly during the first several installations. But after 5 or 6 uses, that factory lubrication starts to wear thin. Once it is gone, the O-ring faces more friction with every insertion, which makes it more likely to roll, twist, or even tear inside the fitting. And a torn O-ring means a guaranteed leak. So what should you do about it? First, SharkBite fittings that have been used repeatedly for testing should not go into a permanent installation. That comes straight from the manufacturer. If you have been using a fitting to test connections multiple times, replace it with a fresh one for your final installation. It is a small price to pay for peace of mind. Second, if you do need to reuse a fitting a few times, apply a small amount of silicone-based lubricant to the O-ring before each reinsertion. This helps reduce friction and protects the rubber from tearing. One important thing here: never use petroleum-based lubricants like Vaseline or any kind of pipe dope on these fittings. Petroleum-based products break down EPDM rubber over time, and that will destroy your seal from the inside out. Stick with a food-grade or plumbing-rated silicone lubricant only. Also, before you reuse any fitting, take a close look inside it. Check the O-ring for any visible nicks, cuts, or flat spots. Look at the grab ring teeth to make sure they are all intact and evenly spaced. If anything looks off, do not risk it. A new SharkBite fitting costs a few dollars. A water damage repair costs thousands. And now for the bonus tip that professional plumbers swear by, and this is one most people never think about. Before you push any SharkBite fitting onto a pipe, always make sure the pipe is clean and free of any debris, stickers, paint, or markings right at the connection point. This sounds basic, but you would be amazed how many leaks come from something as simple as a little sawdust, a price sticker, dried flux residue, or even a smudge of paint sitting on the outside of the pipe where the O-ring needs to make contact. That tiny layer of material prevents the O-ring from seating directly against the bare pipe surface, and it creates just enough of a gap for water to sneak through. Take a clean rag or a piece of emery cloth and wipe down the last 2 inches of the pipe before you insert it. If there is paint on the pipe, take the time to strip it off with sandpaper right at the connection area. And while you are at it, give the inside of the fitting a quick look to make sure there is no dust or grit sitting in there either. SharkBite actually recommends rinsing the fitting under clean water if you suspect any debris got inside. A few seconds of cleanup at the connection point can mean the difference between a fitting that holds for decades and one that drips from day one. Thanks for sticking with me through the entire video. If you found this helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more DIY plumbing tips, and check out our other videos.